So the Denver Broncos just made a little bit of a surprise with this roster move by releasing former starting wide receiver Josh Reynolds. So we're going to break it down, talk about why they made this move, my reaction to it, and all of that. But reminder, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of these roster moves and news. Now, Reynolds was on injured reserve due to a finger injury he sustained back since he's been on IR after week 5, so it's been quite a while for him being on the sideline. And then the night of the Broncos-Saints Thursday night game, while Reynolds was on injured reserve and back in Denver, he did not travel with the team down to New Orleans. He was the victim of gunshots after leaving a nightclub strip club around 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's the move right there. Why did they make this move? I'll answer that in a moment. But I will say right now, I think there's a high chance that Reynolds comes back on the practice squad. I don't think this is a, hey, we want to move on from Josh Reynolds. We don't like Josh Reynolds. No, I just think it was one of those number game scenarios, and Denver wanted to hold on to one of their younger receivers over the veteran receiver, who, by the way, kind of came out with a nice payday. I mean, $4.5 million for 12 receptions this year in 5 games. That's called great work. 183 yards and 1 touchdown in the first quarter of the season. So why did they move on from Reynolds, though? Again, I don't think it has anything to do to his play or his rehab or anything like that. I think Sean and George Paton looked at their wide receiver room and asked themselves, do we want to see any of these 5 players see reduction in snaps for Josh Reynolds, a veteran guy who's probably not going to be here for very much longer beyond the 2-year contract we signed him to? Whose snaps was he going to take? I mean, look at the growth we have seen from this receiver room from start to finish, right? Going into the year, people looked at this receiver room, and myself included, as kind of one of the worst in the NFL. You had Courtland Sutton coming off a 10-touchdown season, but after that, huge question marks. Move on from Jerry Jeudy, replace him with Josh Reynolds. You've got Lil Jordan Humphrey, Marvin Mims, who you're hoping takes a big step in year 2, but that really hasn't happened up until the 93-yard touchdown bomb. And then a couple of rookies, and Devaughn Vele, a day 3 pick, and Troy Franklin, another day 3 pick. Like, there were a lot of gambles being made on this really young receiving core outside of Sutton. And those gambles throughout the course of the season have paid off. So I understand why Denver decided not to bring back Reynolds. They had to make a decision by Wednesday because they opened up his 21-day practice window 20 days ago. And after 21 days, you either have to place him on your active 53-man roster. No one went to IR yesterday. No one's gone on injured reserve. So you didn't have an obvious roster spot opening up. And you didn't want to see him take away snaps from any of these young receivers who are developing and kind of getting into a rhythm as of late. So all that equates to Josh Reynolds getting released and likely being a target for another team. I wouldn't be shocked if once he clears waivers, because I doubt anyone puts a waiver claim in for him, they'd have to take on the remaining years of his contract. So once he clears waivers, he can sign anywhere, and I would not be surprised if Denver brings him back to their practice squad and maybe uses some of their free elevations to bring him up just to have him on the sideline for game day. But to me, I think this just came down to snaps, and they wanted those snaps to go to the younger guys and not to the veteran. So with that being said, like I said earlier, make sure to subscribe to the channel. When news breaks like this, producer Reed and I hop in the studio to get you guys a video ASAP Rocky. So go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. Help us reach our goal of 29,000 subscribers so we can get to the big goal, which is the big 3-0. Now, looking at the receiving core for Denver, I mean, Sutton's on pace for, in my opinion, the best year of his NFL career. I mean, the 2019 season is definitely going to be the best one up to date, but even if he does not reach 10 touchdowns this year, his production and his just overall value to this offense is way higher than it was a year ago. Devaughn Vele is one of the most unsung heroes of this team, a day 3 pick and a late one too out of Utah, and he has been the security blanket for Knicks on so many pass attempts. Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, those are 2 speed demons that are getting better by the week. I mean, take a closer look at Mims and at Franklin and look at the rise over the last couple of weeks and the snaps they have had. I mean, Mims, for example, he's seen more snaps every single week going back to week 10 to this past Monday night. And Troy Franklin, he's been consistent as they come over the last couple of weeks. So I don't think the goal was to get Reynolds back to take snaps away from your former second-round pick or your rookie this year who has improved immensely from the start of training camp to present day. So you look around, you wonder, whose snaps is he going to take? Ultimately, I see why they opened up his practice window. Once he's healthy, get him back on the practice field. And more often than not, unfortunately, in the NFL, an injury pops up, and that usually presents an easy opportunity to fill that roster spot. In this case, there was no injury. No one went to injured reserve, so you weren't going to move on from someone for someone that wouldn't even have a big role on their side of the ball, since all the younger players, and that's kind of advantage in the NFL, younger, are playing pretty well. Now, I want to ask a quick question before we get on to the rest of today's video. Who is the second best wide receiver on the Broncos? I think we're all in agreement that number 14 is number 1. Is it Devaughn Vele? Is it little Jordan Humphrey? Is it Marvin Mims? Like, you can make a fair case for a handful of guys. Personally, I would go with Devaughn Vele. I think Humphrey does a great job of run blocking. I think he provides a lot of leadership to this team. He's a big presence on the field. But Vele, to me, has just been a glue guy, kind of the next Tim Patrick. Now, before we look at the second half of today's video, I also have to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. One thing I love about Game Time is they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So once again, download Game Time, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Now, I was not going to find a way to fill 10 to 12 minutes talking about Josh Reynolds losing his job. But I thought you guys might enjoy peeking at the playoff picture because there is no better form of football pornography than a playoff picture, and your team is in it. And right now, Denver is sitting at the 7th spot, but they've got a cushion-y lead. I don't think that's even a word, but a nice lead on the Colts. 2 games above them at the moment, who are currently 6-7, while Denver is 8-5. They're tied with the Ravens, by the way, and they're only half a game back from being the 5 seed and getting to play one of the biggest frauds in the NFL, the Houston Texans. So let's look at the other remaining teams in the wild card hunt and their schedule coming up, just to give you an idea of who's got maybe an easier path and who's got a more difficult path. So the Broncos come off the bye, and they've got the Colts, who, by the way, are also having a bye. And I think I mentioned this in my last video, but the NFL has it out for Sean Payton, but they can't be so open about it. So look for little ways to nickel and dime him. Like the Broncos play on Monday night, and of course their opponent that week before played on Thursday night. So they have even a bigger rest advantage compared to Denver. And then, of course, the Broncos, when they come off the bye, usually teams play a team that played the previous Sunday. Nope. The Broncos play a Colts team who is also coming off a bye, so no rest advantage for Denver. I know it seems like a small, minute thing, but I swear, these things add up, and the NFL has always done this to Sean Payton. Week 16, they go to L.A., play the Chargers on Thursday night, which they opted into, by the way, because they did not have to agree to that. It would be their second road Thursday night game, but they wanted to do it because it gives them a rest advantage, since the NFL won't give them any advantage anywhere else in the schedule, as they play the Bengals on likely a Saturday. So Cincinnati, who would play on Sunday the week before, this week right here, would only have 6 days, whereas Denver would play on Thursday, so they'll have 9 days of rest compared to 6 days for Cincinnati. And then week 18, they close out the year at home against Kansas City, and I can't wait for this game. But look at the other 2 teams. The Ravens, they have the bye coming up as well. Then they go to the Giants, which, by the way, fun nugget, the New York Giants, the only NFC team, I don't think it's been broken this year, yeah, the only NFC team to beat Lamar Jackson. No, the Eagles just did it. So now 2 teams have beaten Lamar Jackson. But still, pretty weird fact that going into this past week, only Daniel Jones had beaten Lamar from the NFC. Week 16, though, they got the Steelers, the Texans, and the Browns. So the Ravens, easy, tough, in between, like tough and easy with the Browns, because they just gave the Broncos a good run for their money as well. And then finally, the Chargers. They've got probably the toughest schedule. Chiefs on Sunday night, Buccaneers, who are 6-6, Broncos at home, at New England, so cross-country trip, and then at the Raiders. So they end the year with back-to-back road games, and then they have 3 tough games against all teams 500 or better. So if there's one team that might slip up a little bit, I would think it is the Chargers, and that would be great news for Denver, because sometimes you can kind of jockey around the playoff picture a little bit, and maybe it's better to be a lower seed based on the matchup for you. I don't think that's the case this year. If I'm Denver, I'd much rather play Pittsburgh or Baltimore and be the 6th seed than be the 7th seed and play the Bills or the Chiefs. I just like that a lot more for Denver. I know they just got the doors blown off by Baltimore, but the Ravens seem like a much more beatable team than the Bills, and I don't want any part of Patrick Mahomes' postseason voodoo magic. So what seed do you think Denver will ultimately finish with? Kind of want to say the 6th seed. I feel like the Chargers are going to slip a little bit, and they could go from 5 to 7, and then the Ravens or the Steelers finish at 5, and the other one wins the division and finishes at 3, and the Broncos kind of sit right in the middle at 6. All right, before we get on out of here, once again, I want to show some love to the Blue and Orange Club and our 2 latest additions and members, along with Slap Yourself, I Don't Give a Buck, John E., Anthony, Bobby, Rick, and then Daniel and Charles. Thank you guys so much for going above and beyond to support us during our watch parties. Make sure to come hang out with us when Week 15 rolls around after the Week 14 bye, and we have our Broncos-Colts watch party.